When I discovered my wife was having an affair with my best friend, I was devastated, until I found the hidden camera footage revealing they were actually plotting to take everything from me. For 6 months, I pretended not to know while they believed they were destroying me. But I was recording everything, gathering evidence, and planning the confrontation that would change all 3 of our lives forever. My name is Ethan Rivera, and until last year, I thought I had everything figured out. A successful architecture firm I'd built from the ground up. A beautiful home in an exclusive neighborhood. A 15-year marriage to Natalie, who I'd met in college and had supported through medical school until she became one of the city's most respected surgeons. And a lifelong friendship with Marcus, who had been by my side since we were awkward teenagers dreaming of building skyscrapers. The 3 of us were inseparable: couples vacations, holiday traditions, weekly dinner parties. Marcus was the godfather to our children. He was family. Then came the business trip to Tokyo that changed everything. It should have been the opportunity of a lifetime, presenting designs for a major international development that would put my firm on the global map. The trip had been scheduled for months, with Natalie and Marcus both insisting I couldn't miss it despite it falling on our anniversary. "We'll celebrate when you get back," Natalie had said, kissing me goodbye at the airport. "This is too important to your career." The presentation went flawlessly. We secured the contract, and I decided to surprise Natalie by returning 2 days early. I pictured her face lighting up when I walked through the door, anniversary gift in hand. Instead, I was the one surprised. I entered our home quietly, hearing music coming from our bedroom upstairs. As I approached, I heard laughter, Natalie's familiar giggle, and a deeper voice I instantly recognized as Marcus's. For a moment, I stood frozen, my mind creating innocent explanations. Maybe they were planning a surprise for my return. Maybe others were there too. But as I reached the top of the stairs, there was no mistaking what I was hearing. I should have burst through the door. I should have confronted them immediately. Instead, some survival instinct I didn't know I possessed made me retreat silently to my home office downstairs. With shaking hands, I opened my laptop and checked our home security system, the sophisticated setup I'd installed myself after a break-in 2 years earlier. The bedroom camera had been disabled, but the hallway camera was still active, and I watched in real time as Marcus eventually exited our bedroom, straightening his clothes. Natalie followed, wrapped in my robe, kissing him goodbye at the top of the stairs. "Same time Thursday?" he asked, and she nodded, a smile on her face I once believed belonged only to me. After he left, I quietly exited the house and checked into a hotel. For 3 days, I existed in a fog of betrayal and disbelief, telling Natalie I had extended my trip due to client requests. During those 3 days, I remotely accessed our home security archives, discovering that this wasn't a one-time indiscretion. The affair had been going on for at least 6 months. But something else caught my attention. After their encounters, when they thought they were alone, they would talk. And what they discussed chilled me more than the affair itself. "Have you talked to your lawyer about the firm?" Marcus asked in one recording, lounging on my sofa, drinking my whiskey. "Next week," Natalie replied. "Once we establish the pattern of emotional abandonment and neglect, we'll have leverage for the business assets too." Smart. His name might be on the door, but you funded the startup costs. The right judge will see it as a marital asset you're entitled to control. They were discussing more than an affair. They were planning to take everything from me: my marriage, my company, my reputation. Marcus, as my friend and occasional legal advisor, knew exactly which vulnerabilities to exploit. Natalie, as my wife of 15 years, knew where every financial document was stored. On the night I was supposed to return from Tokyo, I came home with practiced enthusiasm, accepting Natalie's embrace with a smile that never reached my eyes. I presented her with the anniversary gift I'd purchased, an expensive necklace she accepted with what I now recognized as rehearsed gratitude. That night, as she slept beside me, I made my decision. They thought they were the ones doing the deceiving. They were wrong. For the next 6 months, I lived a triple life. To the outside world, I was the same Ethan, dedicated architect, loving husband, loyal friend. I attended dinner parties, hosted clients, and maintained our social calendar without missing a beat. To Natalie and Marcus, I was becoming exactly what they needed me to be: increasingly distant, frequently working late, missing important events, appearing distracted and uninterested in my marriage. I was performing the role of neglectful husband they were creating as their legal narrative. But in secret, I was methodically building an entirely different case. I hired a digital security expert to upgrade our home system, installing additional hidden cameras and recovering deleted footage. I consulted with a divorce attorney in another city, carefully moving assets and documenting every conversation Natalie and Marcus had in my home. I recorded our dinner parties, where I deliberately mentioned business challenges that prompted revealing responses from both of them. Most crucially, I discovered their endgame. Once the divorce was finalized, Marcus would use his position as my company's outside counsel to facilitate Natalie gaining control of my firm through the divorce settlement. They would then restructure it with Marcus joining as partner in my place. They had already discussed which of my clients they would keep and which employees they would let go. The most painful discovery was learning they had been strategic from the beginning. Marcus had deliberately encouraged me to use joint accounts and place assets in both our names for tax purposes. Natalie had suggested refinancing my office building 2 years earlier, using our home as collateral to reduce interest rates. Every financial decision I thought we had made as partners had actually been laying groundwork for my eventual destruction. Through it all, maintaining my composure was excruciating. Kissing Natalie goodbye while knowing where she was going. Clapping Marcus on the shoulder at our regular basketball games while he detailed client meetings I should let him handle. Watching them exchange glances at dinner parties, thinking their secret communications went unnoticed. But the hardest part was the children, our 12-year-old daughter Emma and 10-year-old son Liam, who adored both their mother and their uncle Marcus. Knowing what was coming for our family kept me awake at night, but it also strengthened my resolve. Their future security depended on how thoroughly I prepared. The more I investigated, the more I uncovered. Not only were Natalie and Marcus planning to take my company, but they had been systematically isolating me from my support network. Small comments to friends about my concerning behavior. Suggestions to my parents that I seemed unstable and they should give me space. Messages to colleagues expressing worry about my mental state. They were building a narrative of a man falling apart. A narrative that would support their claims in court and turn people against me before I could defend myself. One night, as I reviewed security footage of them talking in our kitchen, I heard something that made my blood run cold. "What about the kids?" Marcus asked, pouring more wine. "They'll adjust," Natalie replied casually. "Children are resilient. Besides, they already adore you. It won't be a difficult transition once the dust settles." "And if Ethan fights for custody?" Natalie's laugh was chilling in its confidence. "With what evidence?" "We've been documenting his concerning patterns for months. Late nights, missed school events, emotional distance. The right psychologist will interpret that exactly how we need them to." It was surreal to hear them discussing my children as assets to be allocated, obstacles to be managed. In that moment, my pain transformed into cold, precise determination. This wasn't just about me anymore. As my evidence mounted, I made one final, crucial move. I identified the weakest link in their alliance, Rebecca, Marcus's assistant of 5 years. She had always been friendly to me, and I suspected from certain camera footage that she was uncomfortable with whatever she knew about Marcus's activities. I invited her to lunch under the pretense of discussing a project. Once we were seated in a quiet corner of a restaurant far from our usual places, I took a calculated risk. "Rebecca, I need to ask you something and I need absolute honesty. What do you know about Marcus's relationship with my wife?" Her face paled. "Ethan, I don't think I should." "I already know, Rebecca. I have evidence. What I need to understand is how deep the professional misconduct goes." She stared at her plate for a long moment before looking up with tears in her eyes. "He's been billing you for hours spent with her. He's been altering documents you've signed. And he's been recording your conversations without consent to edit them later." By the time lunch ended, Rebecca had agreed to provide copies of altered billing records, tampered documents, and evidence of ethical violations that would end Marcus's legal career. Her motivation wasn't money, I offered, but she refused. It was her own disgust with being made complicit in their betrayal. I've been looking for another job for months, she admitted. I just couldn't afford to leave without having something else lined up. You won't have to, I assured her, writing down a name and number. My friend's firm is hiring. Tell her I sent you, but this conversation never happened. Rebecca's evidence was the final piece I needed. Not only had Marcus been having an affair with my wife, but he had been committing serious ethical violations as my company's legal counsel. He had billed me for hours spent with Natalie, altered legal documents after I signed them, and selectively edited recordings of our conversations to remove context and create misleading evidence. He has a file labeled Ethan Incidents, Rebecca told me. It's full of recordings and notes documenting times when you supposedly acted erratically or showed poor judgment. But I've been in most of those meetings. He's completely misrepresenting what happened. This wasn't just a betrayal of our friendship. It was a deliberate attempt to destroy my professional reputation and possibly even my license to practice architecture. The stakes were much higher than I had initially realized. 2 weeks later, everything was in place. I had transferred my most sensitive projects to trusted colleagues, secured my client relationships with confidentiality agreements that prevented Natalie or Marcus from contacting them, and documented every ethical violation Marcus had committed as my company's counsel. I also took steps to protect my children from the fallout. I scheduled sessions with a respected child psychologist not affiliated with Natalie's hospital network, ostensibly to help them cope with my increased work stress. In reality, I was establishing a relationship with an objective professional who could observe our family dynamics and provide an unbiased assessment if custody became contested. I chose a Tuesday evening for the confrontation. Natalie was home, expecting Marcus to arrive after I left for a client dinner. My children were spending the night at my parents' house, a regular occurrence I had carefully maintained during these months to keep them away from the coming storm. At 7:30 p.m., right on schedule, the doorbell rang. Natalie, dressed in an outfit I had once complimented but now recognized as not being for my benefit, went to answer it. "You're early," I heard her say as she opened the door. "Ethan just left." Her voice died as she saw not just Marcus, but me standing beside him, along with two people she didn't recognize, my divorce attorney Catherine Zhao and a representative from the State Bar Association, James Bennett. Marcus's face drained of color. "Ethan, what's happening?" "I thought we should all talk," I said calmly, gesturing for everyone to enter. There seemed to be some misunderstandings about my marriage and my company that need clearing up. In the living room, I connected my laptop to our television and began playing a carefully edited montage of their conversations, starting with Marcus and Natalie discussing their plans for my company and ending with footage of Marcus deliberately altering legal documents bearing my signature. "I've known about the affair for 6 months, I explained, my voice steady despite the nausea rising in my throat. But the affair is the least of the issues here. Conspiracy to commit fraud, malpractice, falsification of documents, those are much more serious matters." Natalie found her voice first. "You've been spying on us? Recording us? That's illegal." "Actually," James Bennett from the Bar Association interjected, "Mr. Rivera's security system in his own home is perfectly legal in this state, especially given that it was installed with the knowledge of all household members after a previously documented break-in." Bennett turned to Marcus, his expression professionally neutral but his tone severe. "Mr. Whitman, I'd advise you to secure independent counsel immediately. The evidence Mr. Rivera has provided to our office shows multiple serious violations of professional ethics that could result in disbarment. Your involvement in planning to exploit client confidences for personal gain is particularly concerning." Marcus looked like he might be physically ill. "Ethan, this is a misunderstanding." "Is it?" I interrupted, playing another clip where he explicitly discussed using privileged information from our attorney-client relationship to advantage Natalie in divorce proceedings. For the next hour, I laid out my evidence methodically. The color drained from Marcus's face as he realized the extent of my documentation, not just of their personal betrayal but of his professional misconduct that could end his career and possibly result in criminal charges. "What do you want?" he finally asked, his voice hollow. "From you? Nothing except your resignation as my company's counsel, effective immediately, and your written admission of ethical violations to be held in escrow by my attorney. Stay away from my family, my friends, and my business, and that document remains private." He nodded, defeated. Turning to Natalie, I continued, "As for our marriage, that's already over. But we have children to consider, so here are the terms." The divorce agreement I outlined was fair but left no room for the financial devastation she and Marcus had planned for me. My company remained mine. Our assets would be divided equitably, with generous provisions for our children. But her attempt to take control of my life's work had failed completely. "You don't have to sign tonight," I said as I finished. "Review it with a lawyer, not this one," I added, nodding toward Marcus, "and we can proceed civilly, for the children's sake." Natalie had been uncharacteristically quiet through most of my presentation. Now she looked at me with a mixture of rage and something that might have been respect. "You played us," she said finally. "All this time we thought. You thought I was oblivious. Convenient, wasn't it? The distracted husband, too absorbed in his work to notice his wife's affair. Exactly the narrative you needed." "The recordings won't hold up in court," she said, though her tone lacked conviction. "Maybe not," I conceded. "But the financial documentation will. The evidence of conspiracy will. And most importantly, the testimony of your co-conspirator might." I glanced at Marcus, who couldn't meet either of our eyes. Professional self-preservation is a powerful motivator. As they left, separately, destroyed not by my actions but by the exposure of their own, I felt no triumph, only profound sadness and unexpected relief. The months of deception had taken their toll, but preserving my integrity when they had abandoned theirs gave me strength I didn't know I possessed. The following morning, before either Natalie or Marcus could regroup, I met with my leadership team at the firm. I explained that due to serious ethical violations, Marcus would no longer be representing our company, and outlined new security protocols for all sensitive information. "There will be rumors in the coming weeks," I told them. "About my marriage, about Marcus, about the company. I'm asking for your trust and discretion while I navigate this personally difficult time." Their support was immediate and unified. Many of them had worked with me for years, had watched me build the firm from nothing. Several, I discovered later, had felt uncomfortable with Marcus's increasing involvement in operational decisions over the past year. My next meeting was with Emma and Liam. Telling your children their parents are separating is never easy, but I was determined to shield them from the ugliest aspects of the situation. "Mom and I have decided we can't be married anymore," I explained, sitting with them in our family room. "But we both love you more than anything, and that will never change." "Is it because of Uncle Marcus?" Emma asked, her perceptiveness catching me off guard. "Why would you ask that?" I kept my voice neutral. She shrugged, picking at a thread on her jeans. "He's at our house a lot when you're not home. And I heard Mom on the phone with him once, talking about when you'd be gone. Children see more than we give them credit for." I made a mental note to ensure the psychologist addressed what they might have witnessed. "The problems between Mom and me are complicated," I said carefully. "But you don't need to worry about any of that. Our job is to make sure you both feel safe and loved, no matter what." In the aftermath, rumors spread through our social circle. Some painted me as controlling, others as vindictive. Some friends took sides immediately, often without knowing the full story. I didn't correct them. The people who mattered, my children, my parents, my true friends, knew enough of the truth to understand my actions. Natalie moved out the following week, taking an apartment close to the hospital where she worked. Despite her initial anger, she came to recognize that fighting the divorce terms would only lead to more painful revelations. We established a co-parenting relationship that was initially tense but gradually evolved into a functional partnership focused solely on our children's well-being. Marcus left town within a month, his professional reputation in tatters after several clients discovered his ethical breaches through their own channels. The Bar Association opened a formal investigation, eventually resulting in a 1-year suspension of his license to practice law. Last I heard, he'd relocated to Arizona, working as a legal consultant for a development company, a significant step down from his former prestigious position. Rebecca, Marcus's former assistant, thrived at her new job. She occasionally sent me updates on clients we had protected from the fallout, and once forwarded an email from Marcus attempting to extract information about my company's current projects. She never replied to him. 6 months after the confrontation, I received an unexpected call from Natalie. She wanted to meet to discuss something important regarding the children. We arranged to have coffee at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between our respective homes. When I arrived, she was already seated, looking nervous in a way I hadn't seen since our early dating days. After brief pleasantries, she got directly to the point. "I owe you an apology," she said, her words clearly rehearsed but sincere. What Marcus and I planned was inexcusable. Not just the affair, but the attempt to take your company, to manipulate the narrative about your relationship with Emma and Liam. I stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. "My therapist says I need to take responsibility for my actions to move forward," she explained. "So that's what I'm doing. I'm sorry, Ethan. I lost sight of who I was, of the values I claimed to have." "Why?" I asked, the question that had haunted me through all of this. "We built a life together. 15 years, 2 children. Why throw that away? And why try to destroy me in the process?" She looked down at her coffee. "I could give you reasons. Feeling undervalued, midlife crisis, the excitement of forbidden connection, but they'd all just be excuses. The truth is, I made a series of terrible choices, and then kept making worse ones to justify the earlier ones." She met my eyes. "Marcus was persuasive. He made me believe you were the villain in our story. And now I recognize I was the one who turned it into a tragedy." She hesitated. "The children miss our family dinners. They've asked if we could try having a meal together occasionally, not as a couple, but as their parents. I told them I'd ask you." It was the last thing I expected from this meeting. But as I considered her request, I realized it aligned with what I'd told Emma and Liam from the beginning, that their well-being came first. "I think we can manage that," I said finally. "For their sake." Over the following months, we established a new normal. Sunday dinners with the children. Cooperative attendance at school events. A unified approach to parenting decisions. It wasn't the life I had planned, but it provided stability for Emma and Liam during a period of enormous change. A year later, my company is thriving. I sold our family home, too full of memories both beautiful and painful, and created separate, welcoming spaces for my children in a new home and at my office. They spend half their time with me, and those days are precious beyond measure. The experience changed me in ways I'm still discovering. I'm more cautious with trust, more vigilant about protecting what matters to me. But I've also found unexpected strength in vulnerability. I share my story selectively with other professionals facing similar situations, offering guidance on protecting themselves legally and emotionally. Natalie and I maintain a civil relationship centered entirely on our children. She's dating someone new, a fellow doctor with no connection to our previous social circle. When she introduced him to the children, she followed the protocol we had established together, respecting the boundaries that allow our co-parenting relationship to function. Rebecca, whose courage in coming forward played a crucial role in my story, recently made partner at her new firm. She specializes in corporate ethics and compliance, a fitting focus given her experience. We occasionally meet for coffee, our conversation never touching on Marcus or Natalie, focused instead on professional developments and her new rescue dog. Last month, Emma asked me a question that stopped me in my tracks. "Dad, do you think you'll ever trust someone enough to get married again?" I considered my answer carefully. "I hope so, sweetheart. Trust is like a muscle. It can be injured, but with proper care, it can heal and even grow stronger." Because of what Mom and Uncle Marcus did? She pressed, with the directness only a teenager can master. Life is complicated, I told her. People make mistakes, sometimes terrible ones. But that doesn't mean everyone will make the same mistakes. Part of growing up is learning to trust wisely, not less. She seemed satisfied with that answer, but her question lingered with me. Would I trust again? The truth is, I already had begun to. Not in a romantic relationship, that would take more time, but in my friendship with Rebecca, in my developing co-parenting relationship with Natalie, in my openness with my children about difficult truths. Sometimes people ask why I waited 6 months to confront them, why I lived with the knowledge for so long. The answer is simple. When someone plans to destroy everything you've built, you don't just defend it, you ensure they can never threaten it again. The greatest lesson from this chapter of my life wasn't about betrayal or revenge. It was about patience, strategic thinking, and the quiet power of allowing others to believe they're winning until the very moment they lose everything. As an architect, I understand that some structures need to be demolished completely before something stronger can be built in their place. My marriage was one such structure. What stands in its place now, my relationship with my children, my company, my self-respect, is infinitely stronger for having survived the attempt to destroy it. I don't know what the future holds. There may come a day when I meet someone who makes me want to risk vulnerability again. Until then, I'm focused on rebuilding, not just my life, but my children's understanding of integrity in a world where it often seems in short supply. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that the foundation matters more than the facade. My ex-wife and former best friend created an impressive facade while undermining the foundation of trust beneath it. I'm doing the opposite, building slowly, carefully, with materials tested by fire and found to be unbreakable.